Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon or morning for some of you. We are going to spend the next hour and a half talking about the FDA's and we'll mention, of course, OHRP's final regulatory guidance for reporting safety information. And even though this is a few years old, we do still see where people are struggling, particularly with some of the reporting requirements or the definitions. So we will talk through that as we go along as well. So without further ado, and we're going to talk about, again, what we'll be discussing in the next hour and a half. We'll talk about the changing regulatory climate and really the ripple effect still of this impact for safety reporting in clinical trials, information that was being reported that maybe wasn't meaningful to the recipients. We'll look at the global response and recommendations for more meaningful safety reporting between stakeholders. Again, a U.S. focus on this. We're going to look at FDA and OHRP's take on safety reporting, and we'll talk about how OHRP years ago, actually prior to them finalizing it, 2006, really talked about having a, I don't want to say more hands-off approach, but telling IRBs, listen, if the study has a DSMB, maybe you don't need to see everything. We'll also look at the implications for current practices and look at specific case scenarios. Because we know that working within this environment, we have a system of mutual accountability. We have responsibilities for the IRBs, for the investigators, the CROs, and the sponsors, that we are responsible really for sharing these responsibilities and making sure that everything is clear to everyone and that we're reporting information appropriately so that, again, we can meet that goal of good clinical practice, which is making sure that we are getting credible data from protected subjects. So compliance with safety management and reporting requirements contributes directly, of course, to that emerging safety profile of the product, but then in a larger sense talks about the safety of the protocol, the patient population, and our processes. We collect adverse events because we are trying to, as we said, assess the safety profile of that product, of course, but the population, the protocol. We're looking at benefits and risks associated with that product or the protocol, and ultimately, of course, providing labeling information for that product. In order to do our part as sponsors, providing information onward to the FDA, to regulatory authorities, other regulatory authorities, to IRBs, and to participating investigators, we have to make sure that our investigators are doing their work as well, that our monitors are doing their work. Although gathering safety information should not be the realm of those monitors. They should be making sure everything's reported, but of course we don't want the monitors going out and having to flag things. However, when we have those events, even before we have those events, as outlined in our protocols, we need to make sure how we want that information to come to us. We define that event as a diagnosis, sign, or symptom, however you want to have that structured. We have to make sure that we have assessed causality, and there's a place for that. I was doing an audit last week, and there was nowhere in the reporting requirements for someone to assess causality, for the investigator to actually be part of assessing causality in the reports that they had. We have to make sure that we have structured our causality assessments in a way that is meaningful to us. So we know that over the last few years we've kind of compressed this down to related, not related, taking away that possibly and probably. We also see it expanded to definitely related, definitely not related, possibly, probably, and working our way in. However we gather the information, we need to try our best to do it in a uniform fashion and to make sure that when we have that information, it's meaningful to us. Intensity classification is going to be important as well. The FDA, we will see, expects that the investigator will be assessing not only the causality, but also that intensity or severity as mild, moderate, or severe. Seriousness needs to be defined, whether it meets the regulatory requirements for a serious event or whether it does not. You might also have within your protocol other events that maybe don't meet that regulatory requirement, but that need to be reported in an expedited fashion. So, as we said, severity is an intensity classification and seriousness is a regulatory definition. Talking with folks and interviewing them and looking at some of the documents that we get a chance to see every now and then, we see oftentimes that is still misunderstood.